My name's Gabe Hartfield, and we are actually going to be doing an interview with a friend of mine named Peter DeHaan today. And I think for me, I've just been wanting to interview and connect with different people I know that are from different ministries and some people that have written books to kind of raise awareness of just different Christian books that are out there and also ministries as well. And actually, so Peter has been a longtime friend of mine. I'm trying to think when we actually met. Must be back in like when I was in high school. Is that correct?
Goes back that far, yes.
Yeah, and because I went to school with your son, so quite some time. Well, glad to have you on today, and just wanted to allow you to give a quick introduction about yourself and just some of your work that you've done.
Okay, well, thank you. My name is Peter DeHaan, and I'm an author. I write primarily Christian nonfiction, and my goal in my writing is to connect with people that may be a little put off with the traditional books that are out there. So I want to write to them in a fresh voice and encourage them in their faith journey, and that's my goal.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And I think that one of the things I want to show just our viewers is really quick just what your website looks like, because you've written several books. And so I'm just going to share our screen real quick so people can see. So this is Peter's website and can show just a bunch of different books that he has written. And so there's the most recent one, Jesus' Broken Church. The one we're going to do today, Women of the Bible. Quite a few different ones. I also have the one that you wrote here, 52 Churches, which Peter goes through a different church each week of the year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And it looks like there's another part with that, the workbook as well.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So again, that website is peterdehaan.com, and it's actually in the Facebook link. So if you want to check that out, feel free to just click on that link and you can see more about the book. And today we're going to be going through and talking about a book that I found really interesting, and I think is one of your favorites that you've written too, but it's Women of the Bible. And so yeah, tell me just a little bit about the book Women of the Bible, maybe what inspired you to write this, what kind of sparked that idea.
Sure. Well, the quick answer is that God inspired me to write it. Some of the background in that is that as I would read through the Bible and I'd see these stories about incredible women that I'd never heard about in church, never heard about in Sunday school, never read about in other books, and I thought, something's wrong here. We need to share these women with a wider audience and get them to embrace the diversity of Jesus' church. And I searched online for some books, and there was a book about 10 women of the Bible, or 12 women, maybe 20 women. Well, there's 200. So what about all the rest of them? And then as I talked with people, I said, how many women can you name from the Bible? And most people could give me 4 or 5 names pretty quickly if they thought they could approach 10, but no one ever could tell me more than 10 women of the Bible. And that's when I realized that I need to do something to try to change that. And so that's why I started writing this book.
That's awesome, yeah. And if people are tuning in, I have some questions I'm going to ask, but if you have questions along the way, feel free to post those in the Facebook chat, and I'll see.
Yeah, put me on the hot seat.
Yeah, put Peter in the hot seat. I think that is really helpful too, because I do think that there's quite a few these stories that as I was reading it, I had no idea of some of them. And I think kind of along with what's inspired you or sparked you to write it, I was curious, what are some of the goals or hopes that you had for this book?
My goal was really to let people know that there are women in the Bible, that it's just not a male-oriented book, that there's a lot of females in there that we can celebrate, but we have to find them and be able to celebrate them. So I wanted to give that book not only for women but also for men, so that both genders could read that and celebrate what women have done.
Yeah, actually, so that's one of the things I wanted to get into a little bit is when you think of this book, what do you find unique about it, like as opposed to maybe some other books out there that are similar to it?
Okay, that's a great question. A few things come to mind. One is that it's a comprehensive book. I endeavored to list every woman in the Bible in the book, no matter how obscure they were. The second thing is that I wanted to appeal to both men and women. Now,
Yeah.
obviously, I wrote it for a female audience, but I didn't want it to be off-putting to a guy who picked it up. I wanted him to be able to find it as accessible as everybody else. And sadly, a lot of books that I've read by women for women are a really hard read for me as a guy. And that's
Yes.
not to be critical of them, it's just to say that I wasn't in their audience and their book didn't connect with me. So I wanted a book that would connect with men and women.
I think I was going to say a very similar thing. Like, actually, do you have the cover there right with you?
Yes.
So you can see Women of the Bible, and I'll show it one more. I'll share the screen as well. But I think that even if you look at the cover, the design and stuff, I think that one of the things I felt like as soon as I picked it up, I felt like it was more accessible to me as a guy. And I think that one of the things is I've just thought that a lot of books that are in this genre feel like they're tailored or customized exclusively for a female audience. And while this book, I think, is for women, it is also accessible to men, both in style and just different things like that. So really have appreciated that. And I found it almost to be like a devotional for me because the format of the book wasn't like several pages on one character, but it was like a page or page and a half on, and it summarized a woman's life and then gave a quick like question, almost devotional thought at the end. And I felt like that was just really helpful to almost use this book as a devotional. So.
Oh, thank you. I don't read devotionals because I tend not to like them. So I wrote this as for a devotional for people that don't like devotionals. Something that I would want to read and hopefully other people would want to read as well. And I was talking with my wife about the book this morning. She doesn't normally read the things I write, but she is reading this book. And she pointed out, she said, I really like the questions you ask at the end of each chapter. It makes me think, and it's not superficial, it's not repetitive. It gives me something new to think about each chapter. And so I received that as a great endorsement from her.
Yeah, no, that's great. And each question I felt like it got me thinking, so that was good. And did you say that it covers every single woman in the Bible?
Yes, with a caveat. There are 135 chapters in there, but there's also over 70 additional women listed in the appendix.
Oh,
And
wow.
it wasn't that I didn't want to cover them, I just felt it would be repetitive to do so because we know so little about them. A lot of them appear in genealogies, so we know who they were married to and who their son was. And we know nothing about their husband or their son, so there's really not much to write about them. And I thought about, well, I could look into the meaning of their name, but some of these ladies' names appear multiple times, so it was just going to be repetitive to cover those. So either there's a chapter about them or they're in the appendix. So I believe I've caught every single one of the women in the Bible.
I was so impressed by it because I was just like, kind of like we were saying, like some people can name a few, but there's so many of these inspiring women of the Bible. And I like how you name it because you say it's women of the Bible, but then there's, is it the victorious, the virtuous, the victims, and the vicious? Is that how you list it?
That sounds right.
Yeah, and so 4 different categories of different types of women, because there aren't just the female heroes, but you also see the female antagonists or the villains as well, right? And so just having really interesting and dynamic roles that are often overlooked in Scripture, right?
Yes, and though I put them in 4 groups, let me say that there are very few negative examples of women in the Bible. There's
Interesting.
a handful of them. So most of them we have a lot of reason to celebrate and a lot of positive examples we can come from them.
Well, so on that, if there's a lot to celebrate and a lot of inspiring ones, do you have a favorite one? Like a character that when you were reading, you really enjoyed learning more about her story?
That's a challenging question. Um, Coming up with one may be a little hard for me. Um, I think every one, as I researched them, I discovered something I didn't know about them, which
Hmm.
maybe more drew me to them. One thing might be Eve,
Yeah,
who kicks off the Bible, and two things about her. One is she's only listed by name 4 times in the Bible, which shocked me.
4 times. Yeah.
Twice in the Old Testament, and twice in the New Testament.
Huh.
But what really captured my attention was that after Adam and Eve sin, and God is going to kick them out of the garden, he gives 3 punishments. Well, he gives punishments to Adam, the serpent, and to Eve. But specifically to Eve, he says her punishments for disobedience are going to be pain in childbirth, desire to control her husband, and him ruling over her. So for these to be punishments, that suggests that things were different. Things were the opposite before that. Specifically, that there was no controlling and no ruling. So that would tells me that in God's created order, Adam and Eve lived as equals, not as one trying to be in charge or controlling the other, but as equal partners. And I think that's really significant to get a sense for that. That was God's intent. What we live in now with male-female relationships is in the fallen world, but that's not what he intended to be. And that really hit me as significant.
Yeah, I think that really speaks to also like a lot of conversations about, yeah, that are in church today about complementarian and egalitarian, and just thinking about what does Scripture say about these things and stuff. So, her example and what you pulled from that. One of the people viewing right now asked, what is the most poignant character, or the one that we saw as the most poignant? I think you answered that with your answer there. I think one also that really stood out for me is Lot's wife. Just how you shared about her, that I actually had forgot that Jesus used what her story was as an example of the kingdom coming, right? And although her story is tragic in the sense that if you don't know her story, her and her family were told to leave Sodom and Gomorrah as it was being destroyed, and as they were fleeing from it, she looks back, and when she looks back, is turned into a pillar of salt. And I think like what you pulled from that about how, in the same way that she looked back, often when Christ is calling us to move forward into His kingdom, that often people look back to their old life, and you can't look back. That if you're going to follow Jesus, you have to look forward. And I just found that so inspiring, just to see that image of we have to keep looking forward and following Jesus.
Yep.
I guess one other one that's similar to maybe just favorite character, and if anybody else has other questions, if you're watching, feel free to jump in and post on the Facebook post here. But one other question I had that was related to favorite character is actually, is there anyone that was really surprising to you? Something you did not expect or didn't notice before doing this journey of looking at all the women in the Bible?
Yeah, that's a great question. Not a specific person, but a group of people in the New Testament. I was surprised when I looked into it how many women were named and it said they supported Jesus or they followed Jesus. And I never realized that before. But there was a great number of them who together, collectively, made his ministry possible because they funded it, and they fed him, and they gave him support. And that was something I never would have realized until I started studying this.
Yeah. So, like, in other words, his ministry was supported by women, like almost primarily.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing any place where it says that a male financially supported him. I see many places
Wow.
where it says a female financially supported him.
That's really interesting. So it almost never says that men supported him, but predominantly that women supported his ministry.
Yes.
Very interesting. I think that one that I guess I had never realized until reading your book was when it talks about Job's daughters. Because often it seems like it mentions, it'll say Lot's wife, Noah's wife, or it'll say someone's daughter, someone's wife, and it doesn't name them. And
That's
I think that
frustrating.
would you say, yeah, frustrating,
That's
yeah.
frustrating.
A lot of times I've had people that aren't Christians say, why doesn't it not name like all the women in the Bible, or is this like, reducing their level of status or something? And I think what surprised me was when I got to Job's daughters, and you talk about how in the story of Job, he had 10 kids, 7 sons, and 3 daughters, and tragedy comes and all of them are taken away. But then at the end of the story, God restores all of them, and he has 7 sons and 3 daughters. And what's crazy to me is that while the 7 sons remain unnamed, that the 3 daughters are named. And not only that, not only are they named, but they're also given an inheritance, which is like radically different than the culture of the day, because
Yes.
most of the time it's only the sons, especially the oldest son, that it receives an inheritance. And in Job's case, it's the daughters as well.
Yes. I think through Job's example, we see God's heart,
Hmm.
that he wants all children to have an inheritance.
Hmm. Yeah. Not just them. So, well, any other thoughts you have on this book, or things that you'd want to bring out specifically about this book, Women of the Bible?
I could talk all day about it. There's so many fascinating people there. A couple things I'd like to point out. In the book, I talk about Mary Magdalene and try to set the record straight, because there's a lot of incorrect assumptions based on her life that aren't biblical. But the key thing is that she was really the first missionary for Jesus.
Huh.
And I think that's significant that he tapped a female, countercultural to the day, but he tapped a female to give the breaking news of all history that he's alive.
Hmm.
And he tells her to go tell the other disciples, and she does that. And
Yeah.
we also see, I think it was Julia, who was the deaconess.
Hmm.
So it wasn't just the guys that got to lead, it was also the ladies that got to help out too.
Julia, where was she? Is she in
I think
Acts?
I think it was Julia.
Yeah, that's cool. So in the New Testament, seeing some of them, or like, I think there's Phoebe as well.
Yeah, maybe it was Phoebe. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I wrote the book. I've written 18 books since this, so I forget a lot of the details.
Did you just say 18 books since this?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of books. Well, so on that, what's your next book that's releasing?
My next book is Living Water. It's a devotional Bible study about the Gospel of John. And that comes
very
out on
interesting.
April 24th.
April 24th? Okay.
Yep.
And we can find it on that same link that I posted earlier?
Yes, it will be listed on my website and available any place books are sold.
That's awesome. And it's Living Water, so I'm assuming we'll probably talk about the woman at the well?
She will be in there, yes.
Another female character. That's really interesting also what you brought up about Mary Magdalene being the first missionary, and that probably the most important Christian doctrine is that of the resurrection, and she was entrusted with that. So
Isn't that cool?
it is. Well, I think that is all the questions I had. I'm just looking to see if there's anybody else who posted. Thanks for those who did post questions. But any last things you'd like to share about anything else with this book or other books that you'd recommend reading?
This was, well, whenever I write a book, I say, this is my favorite book. And then I'm on to the next one, that's my favorite book. But I really enjoyed researching and writing Women of the Bible. And I would really encourage everyone to check it out. And regardless of how you read, it's available in ebook, paperback, hardcover, and audiobook. So however you like to consume books, I have an option for you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this, for sharing, and just really appreciate your heart for writing about sometimes the overlooked characters in the Bible and bringing those to light. Super appreciate that, and just all that you do in your partnership and ministry over the years, and just your heart for these books. So thank you, Peter.
Well, thanks for hanging out. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right. Hope you guys have a good one. And what we're going to do is I'll try to do one of these interviews a week with different ministers or people I know that are doing ministry or writing books. If you have a ministry or a book that you'd like to share or have me do an interview on, please let me know, and would very much be happy to be able to talk to you more about that, and look forward to doing these more in the future. All right, have a good one, and we'll
Bye.
close out. See ya.